Koshka to Veins is gonna get melted.
Do I think mobile esports is a phase? No, absolutely not.
And Hat just don't understand what happens. Oh.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Halcyon Report. I'm pretty sure you've noticed there's quite a change and you're wondering where your favourite beard is. Well, I'm now taking over as I have a British accent and he doesn't, so I'm sorry about that. I'm Heaven Naysayerz and I'm going to be your host for the up and coming episodes. I'm a full-time TV presenter on a channel called Jinx Esports TV where I host my daily live show every day talking about a plethora of esports titles. One of my most favourite titles to talk about is Vainglory. I downloaded it and within seconds I fell in love with Scarf and the MOBA in general, and the rest is history. So I'm glad you'll be joining us along for the next episodes, and now you're acquainted, if you've got any complaints, make sure you send them to, we probably won't read this at mail.com, and I'm sure someone will get back to you at some point. But alas, we must carry on, the show must begin. We have a lot to talk about as it is being jam-packed with Vainglory action left, right and centre. And to join us on today's show, we have not only but TSM and GankStars captains FlashX and IraqiZorro. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. Hope you guys are doing well.
It's nice to be talking to you guys from across the pond, that's for sure. So let's get into the first topic here. So a lot has been changing in the format of Vainglory, and the first one to kind of talk about is GankStars. So the coach was actually involved with the making of the drafts for this team for the first time ever this weekend. Instead of the team solely being responsible for the draft picks. So I just would love to know what you guys think this had an effect on the team, whether that's helped them throughout this weekend, or do you feel like it might have not benefited them at all?
Yeah, basically the way we've always done it up to this week, well, up until the coach has joined us, is I usually am responsible for the draft. I try to come up with a scout the teams and put a strategy and a plan going into the weekend for us together as a team, and then I usually run it by the team. I hear their opinions, gather their feedback, and fine tune it accordingly. And then as we go into the draft, as we go into the matches, I'm responsible for it. And since the coach has joined us, which has been for this entire split, he's joined us in the same aspect when it comes to draft. He gives me feedback. He gives us his opinions, and he adds to it. But it still was my responsibility mainly. But this last weekend we tried switching it around, where now it's the coach's responsibility completely. I just give my feedback as just a player, and we just wanted to see how that works out. As far as how I think it worked out for us, I think it's working out pretty well, mainly because I can focus more on other things rather than the draft. Obviously, I'm the captain and the game leader for the team, so I'm shot calling, I'm strategizing a lot of stuff for the game itself. So I have a lot of free time to do that now, rather than worrying about the draft all week long and preparing for it. So in that sense, it's worked out really well, and the coach himself is a person that's working with the team very well. He's doing a very good job of keeping track of what all the other teams are doing, their statistics on the heroes and all of that. So it's a good relief on myself, and it seems to, I would say, worked out maybe a little bit better when it comes to our drafts this weekend, even though we didn't do so well, but it seems to be good.
Yeah, I mean, you probably don't expect a fantastic result straight away going into it. You know, you are trying something new, and I guess finding that role for you as well, you now get the chance to focus a lot more on actual gameplay, which is great. FlashX, how do you experience like drafting and coaches' involvement in terms of like MOBAs? Because we see it a lot in like LCK and other like kind of mobile title tournament formats. Is it something that you kind of have any experience with?
Yeah, I totally understand where Iraqi is coming from in terms of just having so much on your plate as the team captain. It's really, really hard to manage and balance everything. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to catch the GankStars first Cloud9 games. I think that giving that responsibility to someone else is definitely going to help the team, but in terms of making that sort of change so late into the season, I'll be interested to see how that kind of plays out, For me personally, I probably would have waited until next season to make a change like that, but not being in the team environment, not really understanding what their outside responsibilities were, maybe it was something that needed to be implemented immediately.
Right, and I mean, like, I guess, you know, we do see it in other titles as well. These changes so late into a split can actually work in their favour. Just they have that little bit of a teething period, and then suddenly the magic happens. Do you feel like that is going to be something that you will stick with in GankStars? This kind of, you know, relieving you of the pressure of the draft?
I think it's going to depend on how our preparation is going into the live championships, if that's what you're asking about, how that turns out, whether we're being successful with it or not. I think generally, you know, as Flash said, to explain a little bit about how the team environment is, the past 2 weeks the first 2 weeks in the second split, I've had a little bit too much pressure on myself, and I felt like it was affecting the team too much because I wasn't able to perform good enough to play my actual role in the game, both as a carry in lane and as a shot caller. So in that aspect, or coming from that perspective, having the coach take that responsibility is something that we're hoping that turns out very well. Like you said, I mean, in the past in different esports, when a change this late into the season happens, it can either really go really well or it goes really bad. There isn't usually a middle ground, so we're hoping that it goes into the former one, which has been really good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about GankStars' performance. If we kind of just touch upon, like, you have been looking a lot stronger in the most current weeks, but you did kind of fall short with Cloud9. Even though you managed to take one game out of that best of 3 series, is there anything particularly that kind of was your downfall? Like, is there anything that Cloud9 kind of had the upper hand on that? From an outsider point, FlashX, please kind of delve in as well, if you kind of know you know, the strengths of Cloud9 right now.
Yeah, I mean, Cloud9 for sure, super talented team. Even before the spring season even started, I actually pegged Cloud9 to take #1 overall. From a scrim perspective, they probably more than any other team give us an immense amount of problems at TSM, and actually we're definitely on the losing side of things when it comes to scrims. So I just think that they're super good, and they do put a lot of effort in their preparation. I know that they actually have 3 or 4 people in their support staff outside of the team itself that helps them prepare, and Welmer and Physics and Almighty Hobbit and Ian, their manager. I mean, they really do have a lot of people helping them out, and that definitely helps them perform really well as a team.
Yeah, and I mean, how do you feel, IraqiZorro, kind of going into these games against, you know that more established kind of organization? Okay, everyone's kind of been around the scene for the same time in Vainglory, but overall, sort of, you know, Cloud9 is one of those bigger organizations that do have that bigger support network. Do you feel like that's maybe something that might be playing in their favor in these games? You know, this is an endurance test, this split. So do you feel like that's something that kind of plays in their favor?
I mean, the way I feel about it is that it definitely does help them elevate their game. The players, before they had that big supporting staff, they weren't quite playing up to this part that they are playing at least from my personal opinion. Obviously extremely talented players, but they needed something to help them with the strategizing of the game and help them with the drafting and all that stuff. And I think that the support staff that they have is being able to provide. So I do think it does help them, and it does bring them up to another level. That said, I don't think that's the edge that they have over us. I think mainly it comes down to how confident they play and how trusting they are of one another. I think as a team we haven't quite developed that yet, and there could be a couple of things underlying for us as a team that are keeping us from reaching that level of just trusting one another, having complete confidence, and being really decisive. And I think that's the biggest issue we have going up against C9, because they're a team that is extremely confident. They will be in your face once they know they're stronger. And once they know they have a lead. So I think that's what usually goes wrong for us as a team against them. Yeah,
and so that one game that you managed to take out of that best of 3, could you give us a little breakdown of how that went down for you guys?
I think, going into the draft, we just wanted to make sure we either ban Kashka or take her away. We have not been successful at all playing against it. So, the coach did a good job of either deciding to ban it or take it. And then once we had it, we picked up the Lyra, we picked up the Baron. We kind of went in with a strategy of we're going to have a stronger early game and we're going to have a strong mid game, and also because of Baron we're going to have a strong late game, so we have all areas kind of covered. And then the game played out fairly as we expected it. There were a couple of things that were going wrong, such as the team not being completely synergized with our executions, and it caused us some problems. But then once we got to the late game, Baron was on full items. They just weren't able to keep up because Baron is a monster late game. And Koshka, Xenotech, Koshka, Recton, Lyra, obviously extremely well players. And I think late game we were able to finally execute correctly. But throughout the mid game, it seemed like a little bit iffy for us, but we ended up coming on top, which was really good for us. It gave us a really good confidence boost into going into game 3. But that said, game 3 didn't work out well for us.
No, that's excellent though to hear that you are having those glimpses of especially a late game where you could just be completely flustered and throw the game, that you are finding that you can take those victories, and that's something to definitely take heed with and
I would say it's been a weakness of ours. So to win a game during the late game, especially against C9, who are extremely patient and they find the right opportunities late game, it's very good for us. It feels very nice.
So let's sort of talk challenger battles, because that's coming up, which is exciting. So that is we're going to go into our predictions for it, but kind of just for you guys at home, what this is all about is the kind of the people in relegation. So the lower 3 teams in both regions, NA and EU, go against the top 3 teams in those regions, and that always provides some pretty incredible matchups and some interesting results, to say the least. So it's kind of like a do or die situation for the lower teams that are hitting that kind of relegation spot. So in NA, Rage Pingers, Last Baboons and Giraffes, and in EU, Reliable Unions, Denial Esports and Lemon and Lime. Now Lemon and Lime found themselves in the challenger battles last time as well, in the lower parts. So I want you guys to kind of give me your predictions of how you think this may go down. I know it's really hard to kind of predict because these are kind of like the most unexpected matchups that you usually see, and they do provide some good entertainment. But FlashX, what are your predictions going into the challenger battles?
Do we know which challenger teams have selected which VGA teams, or has that not been announced yet?
I don't think so.
I don't think it's been announced. I did try to find prior to this.
Yeah,
I don't think it's been announced yet.
I think that's ultimately a pretty large factor that plays into making predictions. Sure. Challenger battles as a whole, though, the 3 teams that finished top 3, I think, was pretty surprising to everyone, especially considering that you had Echo Fox and Misfits drop out of the Vainglory 8. They were seeded 1 and 2, I believe. And the fact that neither of them took a top 3 spot was pretty surprising, to me at least. So obviously these challenger teams are well equipped to at least compete and give up a very good fight to the teams that are in the bottom 3. The biggest surprises out of those 3 is definitely Los Baboons. I don't know that that's a team that I had personally ever heard of until they started making waves in the challengers. The 3 teams from EU, Reliable Union, Denial Esports, Lemon and Lime, I'm not sure that any of those are necessarily surprises. They can end up going either way. Like all challenge battles, it's going to come down to how well those challenger teams prepare for the double ban system, just because they're so used to single ban. A lot of times players can get really complacent and comfortable on just a single hero or 2, which definitely doesn't work in the Vainglory 8. So I don't know. It's a very hard toss-up for me.
Yeah. As far as Europe, like FlashX said, all these 3 teams are, very well-known teams, and I would say that they were expected to make it to the challenger battles. Honestly speaking, even though I don't know the European scene too much, I don't even know which teams are gonna be in the challenger battles from the VG8 side. I do expect 1 to 2 or even all 3 challenger teams to make it to the VG8. Lemon and Lime, this is their second time, like you said, this season, so maybe they're really, really hungry and they're gonna put a lot of effort into it this time, and they have a little bit more experience with the challenger battles, since obviously they've been in it one time before, so that's gonna be interesting to see. North America, though, it is a very surprising trio of teams that made it to the challenger battles over Echo Fox and Misfits, like FlashX said. I'm gonna say I actually don't expect any of these teams to make it to VG8. Maybe the only team that would make it is perhaps Rage Fingers. They're performing really solid. They usually do fumble when they get, or they get lackluster when they're in the heated situations, the heated moments. They do have a very talented roster though with Truth of Light and Lane. He's a laner that I've had my eyes on him for a very long time now, and they have some challenger battles experience since they were in the challenge battles, I believe, last time this season too, but they weren't able to make it. The three teams they're going to be facing are going to be Rogue, Immortals, and the Tribe, I believe. So I expect the Tribe to continue being in VG8. I would say Rogue too. Immortals is a team that's going to be a question to me because they're going to be going to live finals. I don't want to touch on this because we're going to be touching on it later on. I don't want to take it away from you, so that's why I was stuck with my words. But that being said, I don't expect any team from the North American challengers side to make it to VG8. The only team that perhaps could do it is Rage Fingers.
Okay, do you agree with that, FlashX, in terms of NA?
I agree. I would say I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
Obviously, ultimately, these challenge battles are all about draft because the challengers teams, they don't have too much experience with double band draft, and VG8 obviously they play all season long with it, so that's ultimately what it comes down to, how much preparation those teams put into it.
Well, I wish them all good luck with that battle in there. But as we were going to say, we're going to touch upon Rogue and kind of their spot in V8. I feel they certainly crumble in late game. I feel like they find themselves getting shut down a lot. And I'm wondering whether they have any more kind of, I don't know, energy left in the bank really for V8, and where do we see them kind of progressing in this?
Yeah, for me, Rogue is a really big question mark.
Yeah.
From like an insider's perspective, TSM scrims almost every single team in the V8 at least once a week. Rogue, more than any other team, performs incredibly well during scrims throughout the week, but when it comes down to game time and competition, they fold super, super hard. Obviously, they had a really tough matchup with C9 this week, so I can't really fault them for that. But for the majority of the season, I mean, if you were to hire an analyst and they were really to sit down and analyze Rogue, I think you could just easily say over 50% of the games, they just straight up lose because of their draft. They don't draft during competitive play, even remotely similar to how they do in scrims. I'm not really sure what gets into their heads and what makes them change their decisions, but it's really frustrating to see a team that I personally think can be really, really talented and really successful make these blunders during the moment that are just absolutely baffling to me. So if they don't get their head straight and draft well during challenge battles, just like you were saying earlier, that's a huge threat for them losing their spot in the V8 for sure.
Yeah, for me, Rogue, not only their draft in the competitive matches, but also most of the games they lose, it seems like they're beating themselves rather than the other team beating them. They would start well, they get a lead, they snowball it a little bit, then they overreach, or they just make a very uncharacteristic mistake. And I'm not sure what's going on with the team exactly because I don't really know the team environment going on. I would say, though, I'm worried for them a little bit because usually when you go on for so long being on the edge of being an amazing team, but you're not really doing it, and everyone having the expectations for you to do it, you either eventually break through and be that team that everyone is expecting you to be, or you just break down and you completely lose your train of thoughts, or like you lose your style, I guess. But that's why I'm worried for them. I wonder how it's gonna turn out for this team. I think the challenger battles is gonna be a very major factor going into whether they're gonna find their strive or not. And then if they stay in VG8 next season, they have a long time to prepare for it. At this point, I don't believe they're going to be going to live finals if I recall correctly. So it's all going to be all about next season. I really hope they do well.
Yeah, it sounds like they do need that kind of respite from the split, really, to kind of regroup. It's funny because we see that in some teams, really, that they, like you say, scrimming, they're absolutely notoriously known for going ham and destroying other teams. And then you go into the mindset of that you need to mentally prepare yourself, knowing what they're capable of. And then it kind of almost feels like wasted energy, almost like, oh, they've not performed as well as they could have done. And it's interesting because it's funny because we see this in some teams in other titles in esports where they just, for some reason, as soon as they go into those actual matches that matter, they're like, yeah, everything we planned, those strats we had, yeah, let's just try something new now. Let's just do this. Or, you know, there's like that loss of synergy instantly. It's very bizarre. Do you think? It's a hard one. It's like, do you think they need to open their doors up to like some support, like, and listen to other team environments and see, you know, and get involved with other teams a little bit more to kind of see what they might be missing out on?
I personally do think so. Eventually, if you're doing something for a long time, like an entire season, and it doesn't work out for you, you obviously need to change something. What that thing is, you usually don't find it really quickly, and you need to look hard for it, but you need to change something. And most of the time, that thing is accepting external help, accepting a coach or an analyst leading your team or giving you a little bit more direction on how to do things. And this is, I think, something that Western players struggle with because there's a lot of pride, generally, just, you know, how they're brought up, how the culture is, that they struggle with external help and external feedback, that they just want to do things their own. I would say, though, it is interesting because I saw Palmatoro tweet today, and he's like, I'm not sure why we're not performing quite as well in the VG8 as we are in scrims. So it seems like it's not an issue that only Rogue is having. Maybe it's a broader issue for these Western teams. So not sure what's gonna happen, but I do wish them the best of luck.
Oh yeah, for sure. You don't want to see a team fold just because they're just missing that little spark. Like, that's a shame, really, isn't it? So yeah, I really hope they do well. I hope all you guys do well. You're all great people. It's a great scene.
Thank you.
Let's talk about my land. People are coming over here. It's exciting. I'm excited. Like, I think GankStar merch might be turning up at my house at some point. And if you wonder what we're talking about, it's the live shows that will be taking place. And yeah, so the best 12 Vainglory teams from NA and Europe are going to be coming over to London to take part in the first kind of live championships, which is also being broadcasted in the help of ESL UK. And man, I'm just stoked just alone for the fact you guys are having a live finals and I get to be there with all you guys. But like, the most coolest thing is that we're getting those teams over here as well, so it's gonna be epic. But in terms of that, it's not far away. It's the 19th of May. And a lot of preparation is obviously going into place. How are you guys preparing for it? And we've got kind of a couple of other things to touch upon in regards to this as well. So yeah, preparation, guys. What are we doing? What's the game plan?
Yeah, so TSM in particular, we're actually going to take the next 2 days off. Prepping for a live event like this is super, super taxing. We'll probably be putting in anywhere from 10 to 12 hours of practice every single day once we do start prepping. So I just want to make sure that myself, Chuck, and Vansi, we're all super well rested, rejuvenated, and ready to grind it out, because once we start practicing on the 3rd of May, we don't stop until we get to London, and we just trust in all of our hard work at that point, scrim quite a few different teams and make sure we're as prepared as possible and hope for the best at that point.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually I want to say funny, because we're doing almost the exact same thing with taking the next 2 days off. Like Flash said, it's a nice break to take before you get into all that hard work that you're going to be putting, and all the time and all the effort. So it's like a relief coming out of the split to just refresh, reset, and then come back into it. As far as our preparation, we're probably going to be looking to do some sort of a boot camp somewhere with the team. Probably still here in North America, because obviously the teams are very strong from what it seems like as a region. So getting the practice against the better teams is usually what pays off for you. And then we're going to be looking to put in as much time as we can up to the live finals, and then hopefully try to rock it there. The biggest thing, and this is a little bit of trash talking towards you, the biggest goal for me going into the live finals is to make it past day 2 and knock out all the European teams. Right, Flash?
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, the whole point, we have to, like, this is the thing in esports, right? People or players and teams, that overworked a lot of the time because you are relentlessly scrimming and then playing on online tournaments, and then you guys, especially the NA teams, you've got to fly over, get adjusted to, you know, a different country for a period of time, a different time zone, and the pressure of live finals is just so much different than playing online, right? Offline is just so taxing in the fact that it is long hours, you are away from your comfort zone, and those kind of things. So it's good to hear you guys are actually having some form of break, and actually you got to kind of step back sometimes as well to kind of not only analyze how you are as a player, but how, you know, you can come back to those rested teammates as well, because it can get heated. You don't really want that kind of bad energy preparing for something. So it's awesome that you guys are taking a break. Now, if someone isn't going to come over to London, there was a tweet from player I want to say Aloha. Yeah, Aloha. Yeah, from Immortals. Do you think that's really going to have an effect on Immortals? You know, just randomly. Oh yeah, by the way, just not coming to London. You know, do you feel like they've got a good enough sub for them? Is that kind of? Were you surprised to hear this announcement?
I was definitely surprised. I'm not really sure what the reasoning is behind that. I would definitely love to see why that's happening. He's obviously a phenomenal player and definitely a core component of that team. To my understanding, the only other players on the Immortals roster is Sui Generis and God of Sins, who I don't know that I've ever really seen in competitive play. So yeah, that's going to be huge for Immortals and is certainly going to be a detriment to their performance.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's gonna affect them very heavily. Like Flash said, I have no idea why, and it's, you know, it's a decision that's being made so soon to the live finals, so it must be something very important coming up for Aloha that's not allowing him to go. I will say this team for me resembles a very cohesive unit that's stuck together for a very long time, even when sometimes they had better options to go with as players to be in different teams. But they chose to stick together because they trusted one another. They have the confidence in one another. So to see one of them missing, a third of the team is gone, I feel like it's going to affect them very heavily. That being said, if they find a very fitting sub to replace Aloha, and they use this time they have up to the live finals to practice really hard and try to get as much synergy with him as possible, they might still come out and surprise everyone like they usually do in the live finals. Yeah,
I mean, introducing someone new to the fold, you know, could just bring that team up again and give them a new kind of like second wind almost. It's interesting in the world of esports, we do have problems with visas and, you know, responsibilities outside as well.
You say that and I have an appointment tomorrow about my visa.
Oh really? Oh well, good luck. I know how hard it is to kind of travel around and do it and everything like that, but usually you know, well, it's getting out there and people are having less issues, but it is a shame to hear people after all that won't be joining people at live events, and it's not usually something you hear of, but best of luck to Immortals in the case, and finding a suitable sub for them to get the results they might want. And finally in today's episode, TSM and Cloud9 are number 1 and number 2 in Vainglory, just like League of Legends. And we're wondering, and it's on the mind of everyone, is this going to be a similar strength duo that we see in Vainglory like we do see in League of Legends? Because it's interesting, when you're an organisation that is good at a particular sport, let's just take Optical FaZe. They're great at FPS and they're dominating now in like Call of Duty, Halo, CSGO, but we see there's similar names in MOBAs. Do you feel like that's to do with organisation setups, or just kind of experience in the field, the way those players react and respond to tournaments, you know, kind of, and the demands? What are we feeling, guys?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm kind of biased being on one of those two teams, but I mean, the reality of it is that when C9 first signed their team in summer of last year, they were performing incredibly well. But kind of as soon as that announcement got made throughout the course of the remainder of 2016, you saw them fall off really, really hard. So really, this season is the first time where both TSM and C9 have been performing very well. I mean, even TSM a year ago, last spring, we had to completely gut the roster. I brought in Chuck and Vancia on the team because we just weren't performing well. So I wouldn't really say that it's the same thing as League of Legends, whereas you kind of always see those two teams up towards the top. But I mean, at least from TSM's perspective, we're taking it more serious than we ever have, and we definitely hope to stay up towards the top.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the biggest thing going on for these big names organizations coming in is that when they sign a team and they bring on players, the players feel the seriousness in the atmosphere, and they just try to put as much effort into it as possible. Obviously, I'm gonna be hoping that these two names do not dominate the scene. TSM has been dominating it for a while, as far as for North America at least, but coming from GankStars, obviously, I'm not going to be hoping for that to continue, and hopefully we can prove that we're able to put ourselves up there too. But as I said, I do think it's for the players going into or playing for these organizations. It gives them a confidence boost, and it gives them a feeling of just needing to be very serious and feeling the responsibility that's on their shoulders.
For sure. I mean, like, the game is still fairly young in an esports scene, right? So you're not going to I think it would almost be wrong, no offense, FlashX, to assume that teams would remain at the top and absolutely dominate a scene, because also Vainglory and Super, even Megacorp, they're going to want to change the meta a lot, and that might not play in the favor of kind of your current roster for a team. So it's... I hate dominance in esports, right? I hate it. I'm like, I love an underdog story. I love them becoming the top thing, and then I ditch them as soon as they get to the top. I'm like, right, where's the next underdog, right? So it's awesome to see, though, that, like, you know, you can translate those skill sets into different esports titles. What do you think it takes, really, then, from you, Zorro? Sorry, what do you think it takes from smaller kind of, you know, setups from you guys like GankStars to kind of shake it up a little bit? What do you think's kind of your weapon of choice?
I mean, obviously the first thing they're going to try to do is provide as much as you can to match what those organizations are providing for their teams. And I think so far as GankStars, at least, is what I can speak for, we've done a good job of doing that. And we're always working harder to match whatever TSM or C9 or any big organization name is able to provide to their team. At the end of the day, I think just because Vainglory is still very, very small, and it's not quite big on the user base either, I would say it's all about the players and what they are able to do and how much commitment they're able to put into their gameplay and into their careers as esport players. That's the biggest factor still in Vainglory. So no matter how much the organization is able to provide for the team and the players, that's what it comes down to. And I think that's going to be the case for at least the remainder of the year, I would say.
Well, it's an exciting time ahead for sure for Vainglory, and I love seeing the scene develop from what it once was to this huge scene now, like live finals, and huge backing from loads of organizations. But it does wrap up this episode for today. So I want to say a massive thank you to FlashX and IraqiZorro for joining us from TSM and GankStars. And I want to say thank you guys as well for tuning in for this episode. I wish you guys the best of luck. I look forward to seeing you guys in London. We can grab a drink and talk Vainglory.
Definitely.
Yes.
Thank you for having us here. I can't wait for London. I think it's going to be so much fun regardless of what actually happens on the fold. I think it's going to be a great event, hopefully.
Yeah, it should be a blast.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to talking more Vainglory next week as well. Don't forget to hit subscribe for the Halcyon report, and we will catch you guys very soon. Goodbye.